Okay. Next up is Ms. Hopkins' presentation. Hello, welcome to Brandywine.
Thank you. So my presentation, okay. First of all, let me say, I'm Ellen Hopkins, and for the community members who don't know, I am currently the most banned author in this country. All my books are going to be over there somewhere underneath, including this book. This book, which is part of my presentation. So my presentation begins with me as a little kid being adopted, how I was raised by an older couple, how we went to church every Sunday, how I raised my lovely children, one of whom became the star of this book. Straight A+ student, went to church every Sunday, we sang in the church choir together, we went camping, we went fishing, we were just a regular upper middle class family. Beautiful kid. You'll see pictures of her as a little child. And then you're gonna find out that at 16 years old, 17 years old, she met the wrong guy, who made her do the one wrong choice. And her life, her dreams, she was on a fast track to a full scholarship at the Art Institute of Seattle. And with one bad choice, her dreams, computer animation, disappeared for 25 years. I would actually invite all of you to come actually see my presentation and how I interact with the kids in the room. And when they hear the story, when they hear about this kid who met the wrong guy and chose to use meth one time, 25 years cycling in and out of abuse, of drug abuse, 7 children produced with 7 different fathers. How we adopted 4 of them. We took custody of 4 of them because we needed to raise kids outside of that situation. When those kids listen to me talk, they listen to me. My goal with my books, all of my books that are over there, has always been to help kids make better choices. To understand that one bad choice can turn their life into a living hell for 25 years. So, tricks, which is teen prostitution, right? I became interested in that subject because I lived in Reno for a long time. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, I live in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Missouri, sorry. After 6 decades in the West, we packed it in and moved to Missouri because my other daughter moved our grandkids to Tennessee, so that's why we're in Missouri. But tricks. There was a bust in Reno. The FBI came in and busted a sex trafficking operation, child sex trafficking operation, 120 kids. The average age of those kids, 12 years old. So I wanted to know how, why, where, when. I worked with Las Vegas Vice for a year. I sat in the court where a judge worked with victims. I worked with victims telling their own stories. Traffic, which is the sequel, is about survivorship. Can you go home? Can you find love? Is there life after? So I wrote that book to keep kids off the streets. It's easy for your kids to be invited into situations by a nice-looking man who says, you know, you should be a model. You're beautiful. All 5 of those kids in that book, all 5 of those stories, based on real stories. Real stories. Identical childhood sexual abuse, right? I wrote that book because 4 of my friends were sexually abused by their fathers. One started at 4 years old, one at 6, one at 10, one at 12. When I was a kid, we were told to shut up. You don't talk about stuff like this. You stand over in the corner and be quiet. There are kids that don't even know it's wrong because they're raised not to know it's wrong. I wrote that book so they would know, A, it's wrong, and B, you need to stand up and speak up now. Don't wait. There is hope, there is help. You can get out. Every single one of my books, you read the author notes in the back, there are ways It tells them ways to get out. It gives them the resources to leave, to get out of that situation, to speak up, to talk to somebody, to get help. Over the years, I have literally tens of thousands of emails, messages, letters. Thank me for helping them out of this situation, helping them off the street, helping them. And if it's not the kids that are going through this stuff, it's kids that say, I decided to be a social worker. I decided to be a psychologist because I want to help kids like that. I got one, and he's like, when the kids in the book, I couldn't help them in the book. I felt like I let them down, so now I'm going to school to be somebody that can help those kids. There are reasons that books like this exist. There are kids in this school that need these books. You might not think that there are gay kids in this school. There are gay kids in this school. Books don't make them gay. There are Muslim kids, there are black kids, there are Latino kids, there are Asian kids that need to be represented in books. To find offense in that, to me, it's incomprehensible.
Is that part of your presentation tomorrow? Is it summary? I mean, what we're trying to get is just a summary of what you're presenting, not trying to be rude.
I've talked about the story behind this, okay?
Yeah,
I'm not reading anything sexually explicit, you know?
No, all I'm saying is we just wanted a summary of your presentation.
Right, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and I appreciate the sentiment of what you're saying, and of course, those are great lessons. And I think, you know, that it's just within the decision of this community that we have, you know, allow parents to make the decision of the graphic intent and the graphic details of your novels.
Which opt-outs would be.
I mean, that's separate from I believe, the sentiment and the intention. Of course, none of us want a child abused. None of us, all of us want to teach children to be safe and to make good decisions and avoid those situations. I think that the point, you know, with the books, I don't think they're underneath anything, that we can shine a light for our parents to know what their kids are being exposed to.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would also wonder why your presentation is restricted to the juniors and seniors at our high school.
I didn't do that.
Mr. Walker, could you tell us why?
Yeah, I
And
didn't.
that they need a permission slip to come in here, Ms. Hopkins, from their parents, if there's no sexually explicit material going to be shed. Why did we have to have an opt-in and only for juniors and seniors?
I didn't know what the topic of the presentation was exactly, if it was going to get into any of the content of the book or not.
How would you not know if we're bringing a presenter to an assembly at our school? It's very concerning.
I'm pretty sure I sent the information up front that I was definitely not, you know, I do the presentation to middle school kids.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I understand my audience. You know, I would talk to you guys in a whole different way than I'm going to talk to kids.
And the way you presented right now makes perfect sense. That you've written books about life experiences for kids to be safe. That's understandable. But I'm just again, I would like an answer why this is restricted.
He's trying to answer,
I'm
though.
speaking, though.
But he's trying to answer, and you
I was
cut off
speaking
when
as
you were
well.
We
answering.
also, Ms. Hopkins also tried to clarify what she was saying as well. So I'm just trying to get the answer now. Thank you.
Maybe you can go ahead.
All set?
Yep.
Okay. So I didn't know what the topic of the presentation was going to be originally. We had actually, my understanding is parents reached out and invited Ms. or Mrs. Tompkins into the community, and that she wanted to come and speak to the kids. So knowing the controversy that has surrounded the books for the past 9 months or so now in the district, we started thinking about what would be an appropriate way that we could get information to kids that wanted to receive it without upsetting too many people. So we started with the idea of limiting it to 11th and 12th graders, not just having a school-wide assembly during instructional time. It was actually something that I was going to have open to everybody outside of the school day, but it was her preference to have it during the school day, which I'll respect. So in that case, we thought, depending on where conversation goes, questions that get asked from kids, it would be best to have our older students there, and that their parents know about it. So we've talked a lot about the parent rights over the last 9 months, and we felt that that was a fair way to do that. That would be acceptable to the community right now based on the conversations that have been had. My understanding is that a parent of a sophomore actually reached out, and I believe with their parent permission, they'll be attending as well.
Well, so you made a decision to accept a presentation without knowing what's in the presentation?
As I said, at the time when it was first presented,
But you accepted and said yes.
not without knowing, no.
Okay.
I did
guess I'm-
email. I did email and let you know that it was. Again, I understand my audience. I'm not gonna, I'm
No,
not.
this is really just a discussion between the board
I
and
understand.
superintendent.
I mean, I'm
Sorry.
not.
Yeah.
I'm not here.
I agree. Yeah, I
I'm
get
just
it.
here
Yeah.
to open some minds in the community. There might be people back there that are worried about it as well. You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
And
yeah.
I'm not here to do anything to harm kids, and I never have. I've advocated for kids
Sure.
from the beginning. And so, I guess maybe I'm tired of being called a pedophile and a groomer and, all these bad things because of one passage pulled out of context in this book.
So
one package,
can-
one passage.
Can I do have a question for you. So you mentioned that the average age was about 12 of, I believe it was the one from
trafficking.
Reno.
Yep.
So I get, my question kind of touches on something that you said, and then also that point that, there is a younger age of children that seems to be targeted, the average age. What level of comprehension have you seen in your experience that a 12-year-old would have reading your book? Because, you explained it very well, the context and the background behind the book. And like Ms. McKee said, that's understandable, and I would say that's applaudable that you're trying to intervene on behalf of these kids. But my concern, because I have younger kids, my concern is that my 12-year-old stepson wouldn't take what you explained to us was the intent by reading the context of the book. So I guess
The book is not aimed for 12-year-olds. It's 14 and up. If you look at them, they're 14 and up.
okay. So you do have a recommended audience.
There's a
for-
recommended on the book covers. There is. But let me say this. If you have been through childhood sexual abuse at 4, 6, 8 years old, you can read Identical at 10 years old, and you've been there. You understand.
But
You know what I'm saying? So it depends on the child's experience.
sure, but wouldn't, and I haven't personally had to experience this either by myself or by people that I know. I do have a friend who was abused by her father sexually, so I can relate to it a little bit, but I'm distant from that situation. And maybe this is just getting too far into it, and maybe a conversation that we can have outside of here, but I feel like knowing my friend's situation and how she copes, for lack of a better word, reading something like what happened to her would trigger
Could be
trauma
triggered, right.
versus be an outlet like, hey, I'm not the only one going through this. There is hope.
Well,
So-
again, I get letters. I have letters that I will be reading at the Michigan Librarians Association in a few days. They're both like, I read the book. I've never cried at all, and I read those passages, and I cried, and it was okay because it was something that I've been through, and nobody believed me, Or she said, "Thank you for not closing the door." Because when you close the door, people assume nothing really is happening behind the door.
Sure.
So it's going to depend on the reader. There are trigger warnings in the books, for sure, So it's going to depend on the kid. So I told you we took custody. So we adopted first baby, the one that's in the back of this book. Orion, a real life hunter in the book. Get it? Get it? So we adopted him, and then we took custody of 3 more. And one of them came at 9 years old with severe PTSD due to childhood trauma suffered because of a boyfriend in his life, right? I handed him this book when he was 10 years old, and he read it in a day because he needed the context. He needed to know why his mom left him, why his mom was not there for him. So he was, He lived it.
So would you agree, though, that there needs to be a level of parental involvement when dealing with this topic?
I have no problem with parental involvement. I actually think opting out is a better plan than opting in, but that's my opinion. Because there are also kids, and I'm sorry, but there are kids who need books that their parents might not want them to read. And that's the truth. There are kids that are afraid to come out to their parents. And there's a reason why they're afraid to come out to their parents. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to find books that represent who they are and give them some understanding of the things that they're going through.
And this is all stuff that you're going to be discussing tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so is that, did you cover the summary of what you'll be discussing?
Yeah.
tomorrow? Okay.
I mean, we just got into
Ms.
it.
Hopkins,
Okay.
thank you very much for
Hey.
talking to us
Yeah,
and speaking to
and
us.
welcome to Michigan. Enjoy your stay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Actually, my sister lives here, so I'll be seeing her.
Okay.